May I have those?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Right. Hey, we're at 4, we have a quorum. I'll call the meeting order. One note before we get rolling here is the fact that it appears that we're gonna have 2 members absent. Continuously, because of a conflict with the county meetings. So what I'll probably have Mike do is send out a notice. Trying to decide what could be a better time and try to do this. I feel like I have a better signal. Okay, reading and approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
So we had that done at our special meeting last week, a lot of special meeting minutes ready, the regular April meeting.
Okay. Bill, communication.
If.
You want to go right down to this?
Yeah, so
Okay,
because
we're gonna adjust we're gonna adjust the agenda then, and accommodate our guests. We'll roll right down to number 7, new business. Initial project resolutions for the ends of Aurora.
So we have,
John,
Would it be better for us to finish the audit?
he told me no.
Oh, no.
I think that would be better set, so we're being respectful of our guests here, so. Yeah, Joey.
At all.
I
Yeah.
thought it was hurtful.
We have Jody
That's
Bennett.
okay, we're gonna redo his contract, so.
Oh, yeah,
Don't worry.
Yes.
Maybe I can take it.
we'll see where we go. We have Jody Bennett and Corey
Correct.
Gutierrez,
Correct, yeah.
from the Ends of Aurora today. As mentioned, we have initial project resolution, as part of our packet and consideration of the project, and, they've graciously come here to provide an overview of the project.
Absolutely.
So, floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, so we are restoring 1830s farmhouse. The farmhouse sits in front of our existing spa. And it is our owner's mission to restore the last of the historic buildings that she owns. And so that's what we're doing with the farmhouse. As you will have seen in your packet, we are restoring the farmhouse that will have 4 guest rooms in it. Those will be suites. And then outside of the farmhouse are 2 accessory buildings that will each contain an additional 3 rooms each, for a total of 6 additional rooms outside. So we'll have 10 guest rooms. And then the first floor will be primarily parlor space and kitchen, common areas for our guests to use. And you should have the site layout. And so as you see it, the farmhouse, sorry, I don't have this larger, but the farmhouse, the existing farmhouse sits here. And then we've got a U-shaped drive that we're adding with some additional parking. And then there'll be courtyard spaces, gardens. And then the cottages, as we're referring to them, are south of the building. So those will be 6 additional guest rooms, and those will mimic the architecture of the spa. So what we're trying to do is combine the historic farmhouse with a modern spa look, and it'll be a combination of the old and the new. Jody, I don't know if you want to talk about like anticipated guests or some of those details.
Right, well, we're hoping to open by March
March.
2025, so this should add, between 1,200 and 1,500 rooms for us a year, and rooms are high profit margin, so this is the best use of that building. It makes it extra special that it's so close to the spa, so the
spa's been bringing in a lot of traffic for us, which is great, and we expect this to even increase that more. We believe these will be these rooms will be in high demand just because of the proximity to the spa. It's very close.
What they meant for,
What's the rate? What rate going to be for these rooms?
just curious.
650
Ooh.
at this point, that's
Yeah.
what we're estimating. Average throughout the year, not, so that'll be seasonal.
I didn't pay it much for your being, but
Yeah. Don't tell your wife about it.
That's, did you hear me say that's an average throughout the year, so
I-
it'll be
I
having
just
ups and downs,
curious.
yeah.
you didn't want to tell me, I would have been fine.
And then also as part of the package, we've, at this point, received our special permit, from Town of Ledyard, as well as the building permit. Drawings we're at the, construction document phase, and we're moving towards negotiation of final contract value, so.
Complete project cost was
Yeah, the total project costs, let me make sure I don't misstate it.
Oh, 17. 17 is where it landed after, because we've already paid a few things.
Yeah, how much employment, how much people would you be hiring?
We'll add 8 to 10 positions that'll due to this building.
And then they give you a total employment of,
Let's see here. So the chart that we have is for our hourly people. So our current FTEs for the hourly positions are 132, it's 142, and then on top of that are
wow,
exempt positions.
In a range, can you give us a range of, the salaries,
Sure, for
on
these,
average?
oh, you know what, let's see. Let's see here, housekeeper. Can go as high as 40,000, 47,000. This building will also require adding on more massage therapists. Because there's gonna be demand and hopefully we'll be doing on-site massages. And those salaries can be anywhere from, depending on the hours they're working, 40 to 80, 85, 90,000. And then, you
for
know,
massage
ground,
therapist?
They will.
Yeah. They're paid well.
Relax,
Wow.
and they will be, employees or contracted out?
employees, all employees, in addition to grounds, landscaping, Corey's team will grow facilities, another facility to take care of.
Okay, I'm sorry, 17, the project cost is 17
17 million.
million.
And the project itself, local labor content.
Yeah, so we have those projections from our contractors. You know, it's all New York State labor, and then the bulk of it, what was the percent for Cayuga County that?
20.
About 20% Cayuga County. A lot of our contractors are Onondaga County as well. We're in,
60% outside of, on top of the 20.
but within that
16
5 county range, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So can I ask why it's so low for Cayuga County, and what is it that you were looking for that you couldn't find here?
The bids for the mechanicals came from several providers, but Comfort Systems was the company we're likely gonna use, Woodcock and Armani, but right now we're anticipating using J&E Electric out of Auburn. We are anticipating using Vitale for the site work. So just based on availability of the right trades, it didn't exist necessarily in Cayuga County. So we do have, you know, some work coming in from outside, but.
But the majority of which is coming within the surrounding region.
Within the surrounding region, yeah.
And then in addition to the labor utilization report, there is a letter in there that also lists some local companies that we're also purchasing from that maybe not getting labor, but buying products.
Question?
Yeah, so what's the total benefit?
So what wasn't mentioned from our funds on the table here is total project size 17 million, but what they are requesting IDA benefits for is for sales and use tax exemption for the project. It's the IDA's fee on that is usually 10% or $4,500 based on the projected benefit of that. So it looks like we'll be depending and I think you're still finalizing some of those figures there, but we have a pretty firm grasp for it. They're seeking IDA benefits for it.
So 450,000.
Approximately, that's pretty close, actually, the tax benefit that.
Well, it turned out to be 680. But there could be, once we get this subcontractors in that we're expecting that to go down. This was based on the calculation we looked at my phone.
As we work through, depending if the board so chooses past the initial project resolution today, that gives Justin enough power to start setting up a public hearing and cost benefit analysis for contemplated benefits from there.
Right, so we're not committing to anything right now, we're just.
No, this is just the first step.
Okay.
Question? Motion,
So moved.
second? Is
I'll
it four of us?
second. I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have to,
Discussion? Like, no discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Well, then, oh, yeah.
Mr. Vitale. Yes. Mr. Shea,
Yes.
Mr. Latinishon,
Yes,
Mr. Lockwood,
Yes.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Spino,
yes.
absent, and Mr. Rindfleisch.
Yes.
All present voting aye, motion carried.
Yes.
Thank you.
thank you very much. Be in touch.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Danny. No plan, please. Good luck. Yeah, you.
George said Denny, I thought, so,
Lenny.
oh, Lenny, okay.
Well, first, I'd like to introduce you to our new board member, Donna Adams.
I don't know if you John Brian.
Very nice to meet you.
Brian.
Geez, I was good.
Who knew?
You and I been together.
Don't really respond to.
I apologize.
And Chip, of course, who's the Chip is our project manager for a new plant that we're building now. I'm excited for the Team Middle Drive. We came to speak that my understanding or our understanding was there was some discussion about the water line or potential water line out there for that project. What I thought was gonna happen last minute board meeting, then it got canceled, so is there any status on that?
I don't want to step in front of the board here, but last we spoke, Brian, we did have a special meeting last week. On that very thing here, and the big takeaway I had, was there's a couple of different things going on here. But what the board was looking to do here is to make sure, we have the proper authority to continue moving this through it at this time here, as Justin, who's on the phone, kind of pointed out. It could put us under, public service, conditions, which is a different animal, for us to contemplate here. Rick being the water and sewer attorney, as I understand from their bylaws, they don't have the ability, to sell water directly into the town without the town's explicit consent. And knowing that there's a bunch of different hosts of parties involved here, one thing the board agreed on is, one, how can we help support you? And yet another expansion of the project here, but to make sure that we're getting all the right players involved here. So if I recall, a contingent board members were looking to meet the town. I don't know. We had it walked through last week and setting that up.
I reached out to one of my friends on the town board. He was trying to facilitate me.
Okay.
When you say facilitate,
When I talked to Andy, Monday, Tuesday.
would that be with all of us or just you guys?
If you want to be involved, I'd love it.
Why not?
Thank you.
May as well get in the same room and talk about it.
Let's do that. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I just want to know because, I think when we
I'm
talk about,
honest. Yeah, there's my downfall, honest. I'm having trouble getting it together. The town is giving me some pushback. So,
push back on the decision to go forward with the water.
to try to get a meeting together. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so the town doesn't want to get together.
I didn't say that exactly, but I'm getting a little pushback. But
Okay,
that don't stop me from pushing.
okay,
So
Um,
can I ask
yes.
what, if any, discussions you've had with the town?
Well, the only discussion I've had with them on water is, you asked about the seeker last time. I'll let Chip talk to that because he's the expert as far as how that all worked out, but basically,
Essentially, on the seeker application, they asked us for what the daily flow of for our project was going to be. We indicated what the flow was. They came back to us a few weeks ago and asked again if that was confirmed, and we sent them a letter probably a week ago that confirmed that was not an issue, that the daily flow was not the issue. The only issue that we had with the water supply had to do with peak flows and with pressure.
So when you say the secret, was that for the first phase or second phase?
there's only one favor.
There's only one phase.
All right, well, no,
There's only.
right, but have you had discussion, anybody at CMI had discussions with the town for phase two? Which
There is no
currently
phase
built?
two. What phase two are you talking about?
Are you
Well,
referring to
okay.
expansion?
Expansion, I'm sorry,
Yeah, we don't have an expansion plan right now. The potential for one maybe down the road.
you're putting up the building.
Yeah, that's phase one.
All right,
Oh,
so
so.
let me correct myself.
Depending.
Yes, sorry.
Depending, whatever you're building right now, you need more water to it. Has anybody with from CMI had a
Yeah,
discussion?
that's what the secret was.
Yeah,
Okay, all right,
So
so
the
because
seeker-
there's the first building, I'm gonna say it's the first building, 5, 6, 8 years ago.
The building that's running right now,
The building that's running and the building you're
that
putting
went
up.
through the secret process before and.
Correct,
And
correct.
that has received water from the town. When we went to do the new project, phase two, or whatever you want to call it, Project Falcon. That one required a secret application, which we submitted into the town, and it was approved, July 10th, I think it was the, or maybe 11th, from one of those 2 days. And that went, and on that application, we indicated that there was 350,000 gallons per day that was required. And the town indicated that they would be able to provide that flow for a daily flow.
so that's been our discussions over the last month with them. As far
Or
as,
an email, letters, phone calls, or
yeah, I think we sent a letter to,
We sent a letter just confirming that.
they had no in-person contact.
no, well, Jared's been talking to Jeff Eaton quite a bit.
Well,
Jeff Eaton,
yeah, okay.
So,
yeah, I mean, they've had conversations over and over and
Just so I know when I'm pushing for this meeting.
Jeff actually asked, Jared for the information.
Okay.
So it started attorney to attorney, so I don't call attorneys, so we had our attorney call their attorney.
Right.
so the
And
three
if
fifty.
I don't even like talk, no, I like talking.
One little kicker is that the head of the planning committee, Jerry Scouten, is been quite ill.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, so I don't know if that's gonna be I've been assured that who's ever on that planning board is up to speed, so. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, we've had multiple meetings with the planning board,
Yeah.
and Jeff Eaton's on that, in those meetings. We've only had one meeting with the town since I've been here. And that was in December of 2022.
Yeah, that would be typical, because it's most of the planning board.
Yeah, it's most of the planning board.
So can I ask, the 350 is in addition to what you're using now?
Yeah,
So total, what would you say your total water usage right now is?
it's just.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, yeah, total with,
With the
Current
the
plus-
existing facility should be just under 300. That was the usage and that per day. And then the new facility will be somewhere around 350. It'll be between 3 and 3.
So double.
No.
Existing is 300 or 300,000?
300,000, sorry. And then about 350 for the new facility.
So double.
Yes, just over double of what was previously being used.
Can the town provide that?
They can provide that flow on a daily basis. The piece, there's a very large difference between, and it's just. That's what we were asked to provide, what was that flow, and they said that they could get that flow. But there are other factors that are involved, pressure, peak flows, and these types of things, so. That you also need to be considered.
And so you've had that discussion with them regarding the peak flows?
I have not had a discussion with them in regard to that. They asked us to provide what their flow was, and they said they could provide that for them in the day. So it's up to us to provide whatever solution we had to provide in order to deal with those kind of issues.
All right, so did they say what the maximum is that they can provide?
but they just had one question on the flow and
Yeah,
that's what we got.
they asked a question and we answered the question, and then they asked us to confirm the answer to that question, which we also sent them in a letter confirming that that was the answer to the question.
So let me ask you a different question.
Sure.
And I asked these because I don't have any of the answers to this. None of this has been discussed, so I'm curious. So for you to comfortably run your plant with the existing building plus what you're putting up, for you to comfortably run, including peak times peak flow, what would you say your requirement would be?
In a GPM,
Yes,
2000 or so. GPM.
okay, so.
GPM and GPH are two different.
All right, yeah.
There's GPD, which is gallons per day.
Right, so you're
Then
saying-
there's a gallons per hour and then there's a
Okay.
gallons per minute.
Let's stay with the 300, 350. Those GPMs or
They're two
GBP?
totally different things. Let me put it this way. If I ran something at 330,000 gallons per minute for 10 minutes, and that's all I ran for the day, my daily flow would be 300,000. But my flow would be, they're two totally different things.
It's not the average or the mean.
All right, so what I'm trying to, so,
The average GPM for 350,000, and I'm hopefully I'm doing the math right, but I believe it's 284 is the average.
284.
Is the average, but you
Gallons
will
per minute.
never have, this is not. We're not, what the average is has nothing to do with what the flow is.
Right, but what I'm, all right, so translate GPM to your maximum, what would you? To run your plant comfortably, including the maximum flow,
About 2,000.
2,000, so,
Gallons per minute.
right, so we're about 1,800 short.
No. I'm saying if you take 350,000 gallons per day and ran that 24 hours a day at 60 minutes an hour, and you did all that math, you come up with 284, I believe it is. Per minute, if you ran it the exact same every single time.
I understand, okay,
That's possible.
Right,
Okay.
it would never happen.
okay,
But I'm saying if you actually went to go and get a peak flow at the absolute worst time, it took out of that 24 minutes, the worst minute, it would be 2,000. Probably. Very close.
And the problem, to put a finer point on it. It's not only your peak usage. But it's the peak usage for the rest of the relay.
That's the two peak,
Yeah.
if that's what would happen if both peaks were the same.
Yeah. And if you have a fire. And the fire department hooks up to a hydrant, you're hosed even more so.
so how did you tell, or how do you tell? Or how do you ask Aurelius? How much water you need?
They asked us and we told them
Okay, what did you tell him?
350,000 gallons per day. That's what was the question, the answer.
All right, but
That's what we need to run a plant.
Yes.
I asked that and then you went GPM. So I'm
You
trying
asked
to,
it-
I'm
you
trying to
asked
figure
me-
out.
I'm
So-
not trying to be.
No, and I'm not trying to be difficult either. I'm just trying to
You
understand.
asked me
I
two
don't
different
understand.
questions. You've asked me what was asked by the town.
No, I wanna know,
And
no,
then you asked.
I
me, what
asked
is your
you,
peak? And I
what,
told you both
how
the
much
answer.
water do you need? Do you need, not what the town asked you? How much water?
Well, before we get into all that, let me just say one thing. One is, there's two reasons why we would be interested in having a separate line. The primary reason is that we need to have a second source
Okay,
for safety, just to make sure, what if Aurelius went down? What happens then? What happens if we don't get water from them for whatever reason? There's an earthquake. Something happens, I don't know. Almost every business park has more than one source of water coming into it. So from a safety standpoint, we're very interested in.
Mhm.
The second thing is it helps us get flows from two different directions as well, which only helps in the situation. So those two things help all the questions you're asking. So basically, the other way you do it is you have to make sure you just have infrastructure to make sure you can deal with the flows and the surges. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, if we know we're getting X amount coming in per minute, and we have to figure out what to do with that to make it work, we will make it work. The big issue, to your point.
You have tanks, you do whatever you have to do.
Thank you for bringing that up, is having two sources. It's very, very rare that I've been in a facility that had a multiple hundred GPM flow that didn't have a second source.
so you've got, the original was 300,000, which is what you're running now. And I remember I was here when it was being built, second source was never asked for. When that plant was first built.
Well, there's one plant now, and there's a second one.
No, I understand that, no,
There's a
I-
potential of more plants being built, so.
Well,
one
I
line-
understand that, but I'm saying, I don't disagree with needing two lines. But, that was never asked for in the first building that was put up.
I can't be, I mean, I wasn't.
Right, no, I'm just.
But it was one plant. This is a park that we're now bought a lot more lots. And we're expanding on the lot that was there before on a building that's twice the size of the other one.
Right,
But the flows on both plants are similar. Different kinds of plants, one's doing consumer products, one's doing ingredients, different types of businesses. So both dairy, but different parts of the dairy business. And then there's opportunities to put more plants
Mhm.
down the road. And so down the road is really what we're talking about more than anything now. And if we do any kind of expansions on even the buildings that we're doing now, we'd be probably talking about.
Is that why you're here tonight?
No, because I'm not ready to talk about it, any expansions right now. All I want to talk about is if there's a second source, we feel a lot better from a safety
Right,
standpoint,
right.
from a security standpoint. How do we make sure that we don't ever have a problem getting water in the first place?
So let me ask, does it matter who provides you the water, as long as you get the water, if Aurelius can provide you the
Here's the
water?
thing, no matter, no, we don't care. We got charged a lot more, and there was a pilot program. And the pilot program ended. And then after the 10 years that we got to raise. So costs are a lot, triple what they used to be. And I think they actually just went down slightly from where they tripled, but they were probably too low before. So you got this somewhere in between where we were is probably a reasonable number.
Okay,
So I don't know what the cost should be in general. I know it's supposed to be kind of a break even. The utilities aren't supposed to make a lot of money on this. So you've got to cover your costs and all that. So I don't know what it's costing to run, but I know last year we paid triple than we did the 9 years before that.
Me is that you were undercharged,
Sounded like we were undercharged.
yeah, and then there was for lack of better, a makeup to bring back.
I don't know. Maybe that's why, because it did just come back down.
Yeah, that's,
And I don't know if
that I
that's
keep
enough.
probing into this, and the more I probe into it, the more confused I get, so I can appreciate where you are.
Well, the day I got there, I found out they tripled from the year before.
The
I go,
problem-
okay.
the
And I didn't
problem-
know there was a pilot thing. I'm like, okay, what was that?
The basic-
So I'm gonna say over the first 3 months, I found out a lot about water, and it wasn't just water, it was sewer. But
The basic problem is the city controls supply. So no matter what you pay there's gonna be for lack of a better word, a wheeling fee. Cause the city, unless the city provides it to you directly, whoever has to provide it to you has to pay the city. And then, like Aurelius said, it has to pay their water people and their repairs. So there's always, you're never going to get it any cheaper because the city is going to control all the growth in this county, whether you like that or not.
my understanding from the discussions I've had is that the city has plenty of capacity. So
Yeah,
it's not like there's a problem getting the flow.
right.
Right.
The
Yeah.
problem is if anything happens to the flow that we have, we got a big problem.
Right.
Yep.
And now we're putting a second plant up.
Yep.
And we don't have a second source. And that just seems like we should be talking about security.
Yep.
Number one.
Mhm.
Number two is just peaks and help with that. And the infrastructure for a second line versus all the other things that we would have to do is actually less than the other options we have to look at.
That is, it's my understanding that you folks agreed to pay for some of this or front the money for some of this, I thought that.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
Who wrote you a letter?
No, I read that, just wanna make, I just wanna make sure, so
I signed it, so yeah, I know, we signed it.
I'm one of the people that are very pro getting a meeting together.
Yeah.
I think it would be great. You guys get together with Ray, with whoever else.
Let's call them together. Let's call them
What's
now.
that?
What I'll do is I'm gonna call a special meeting, invite the town, our board.
Or we go to the town.
And the
One of
city. Let's get the city involved.
everybody
I
that,
I think I'll just start with us. You in the town first,
That's fine, whatever you guys wanna do.
cause
I want,
first I gotta straighten out that iron.
Chip in there explaining the GPM versus the G.
Well, they.
Maybe then I'll
probably have-
understand.
They have engineers there, so that, yeah, bring their engineer, will be fine.
Okay,
Yeah, Carl.
Yeah, and get Carl.
usually Carl's here.
Whoever's gonna be providing the water, I think should be there and just work this out, this clean, and as quick. When do you folks think you're going online?
Commissioning was really fourth quarter, first quarter next year, fourth quarter this year, first quarter next year, so pretty
Okay.
soon.
So you're like,
That's commissioning, that's like, we gotta have the water.
Prior to that,
I used to work on milk plant along with having the dairy. And milk plants are a high volume user of water. You got a lot of washing to do.
You gotta watch things, yeah.
and then we're looking at sewer. And that looks to be August.
Well, the other thing that we were looking
The
at.
Generator,
We'd like to make sure, we put in lots 9 and 10 as first right of refusal, or right of first refusal, whatever, that, it's ROFR, I know, right of first refusal. And that gives us through the end of the year to be able to buy lots, but we gotta come in with a business plan, right?
Yeah, so with any, same thing as you did with your prior expansion is do a land development agreement, and we talked about that, and it's essentially an option on land, but it gives us and you some time to get around the larger. This is what bigger.
Okay, so, I mean, we're not quite prepared for that, because we don't, we have another entity that might be involved in helping us with some of this. And they'll have a lot of influence on the job creation, but the other is we need to use some of the land for wastewater. So 9 and 10, we also would like to use either one of those lots for wastewater, probably 10, right? Or we heard there was a potential lot that was next to another spot where I guess that's also available potentially.
Yes. Lot of is back on the market.
What I'm at.
Not 11, that's Denkavit. Talking about, there's a road that comes into Eagle Drive. And it's just on the other side. We have the lot where all the trucks are parking now. Just across the street from that, is a
Oh.
vacant lot.
Ellis Drive that goes along that strip there.
Yeah. Is that a lot that's available also?
Did you have Johnson in the northeast?
Yeah,
corner?
I know the road you're talking about is where the sewer line is coming through
Right.
right now.
so is
Right.
it north of Denkovic?
North and, no,
Yep. It's,
it's northwest, so where that intersection is.
yeah.
Yes,
You have Johnston up to the northeast, Lot 4 to the southeast,
Mhm.
you have Cayuga to the southwest, and then there's a CCIDA lot that is
next to
Yeah.
the.
not part of the industrial park, but it shows on the tax map, it's owned by CCIDA.
It is.
Is that available?
Because that would be perfect for the wastewater.
Is that the one by
And
the?
so we really want to start asking about options.
Is there a fabric, that's right next to the
No.
fabrication?
No, it's on the other
It's
side.
across the street.
It's on the other side.
On the same side of Johnson Paper?
Yeah, it's where a lot of trash used to get dumped over there.
No, what do you mean by wastewater?
So we have a wastewater system now, but we're going to put in a second system to help.
So what is
But
the,
we want to put in actually a fairly large one that's big enough as we keep adding on, we could just add modules to it.
So would that be like?
We actually wanna set up a separate system and,
Like a lagoon?
no,
A building.
It's a building 70 feet by 250 feet, and then outside of it will be 4 tanks that are in the 600,000-700,000.
Then how do you dispose of that?
That gets treated
Mhm.
and then goes right into the,
Oh, so it comes out of your.
right into your,
Without-
right into the county enforcement.
Uh-huh.
it'll be clean.
No way you can recycle that.
There are water reclamation things that we can do, but that's not one of the ones that's ideal.
It just seems like a waste.
Yes, there are things that we will ultimately be doing water reclamation wise, but. this
Okay,
is-
so why
this
are you
is-
here tonight?
That's about the options on the land, plus that extra land that we just described. I don't know what lot number it is, but
It
it's,
doesn't even have a number.
No, it's just a
No.
roadway.
it's just a roadway. It didn't have a lot number anywhere that we could find. We just knew it was owned by you.
Mm-hmm.
And lot 9 and 10, we want to find a way, if we can't get a business plan, can we at least talk to you about buying those just for wastewater if we can't put it on that other piece of land? Just for the benefit of this, as part of this plan.
Well, part of the IDA's mission is the creation of jobs.
Right.
So I kind of hate to sell 20 acres and not have any
Jobs
jobs.
attached to it. So it needs jobs as well, not just wastewater, that we know we need to put out there. That will then be a big enough for all these other things that we're talking about doing. It needs more than that.
I would think that one parcel would be good use.
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
great.
That stretch there.
So let me ask, so your concern is that the lots get taken away, bought away from you?
Yeah, we don't want anybody trying to buy those, so we want to start working on it now.
We have interest.
We can have all that.
We have interest on lot 11.
Well, lot 11, we talked to them, and they're actually happy to work with us or whatever, but they said we're buying.
We also have other prospects.
Oh, another process, okay. We want to buy 9 and 10.
Right,
We'd
right.
love to buy 11 too. Tomorrow.
Just get checkbook out.
Yeah, we'll buy it tomorrow if you let us.
They will pay us. I mean, that's.
So we can start those discussions outside of that meeting here, and get the ball rolling on, what a potential agreement would look like
On 9 and 10.
on 9, 10, and,
Yeah, because I mean, that's really, really important to us right now.
so
And then that parcel too.
And there's like
we can lock that in. as
lots
well.
of, lot more jobs than there existing right now involved.
Being a farmer, I'd encourage you to buy lot 11 too, because farmers always buy the farm.
We wanted to, but we went over and talked to the person that had the first right of refusal on that. They told us they were buying it.
They have since backed off that.
Then we want to buy it.
Okay. So.
We'll
that's-
buy
that's
9,
not-
10 and 11.
Okay. and-
On a separate note, are you gonna do anything this year? Because John Patterson called me, wanted to know if he could work those fields this year.
We took a big chunk of it away already, so.
Right. He
I'm gonna
said about
say,
25
I don't
acres.
know. I don't know.
This,
I called him
I
last
thought
year.
as part owner, he should know more than I do.
Well, no, I called him last year and said where he could put the crops in. We'll have to look at it because it all depends.
You want.
Over the next 60 days are really critical. If we can say we can lock up those 9 and 10, I think a lot of other things are gonna happen.
Do you say 6 or 60?
60 days.
Next 60?
Next 60 days.
Okay.
So do you want to talk to John then?
Yeah, I'll talk.
Thank you. Is that
I
right?
got him in my phone.
Sure. That way I'm out of it.
Yeah.
Just tell him I'll call. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's probably good for this year, but after that.
Yeah, this year's probably the last year and I don't know if it'll be everything we have with them last year.
That's okay. We're selling the cows. We got a lot of feed. We're gonna sell them, so that's fine.
Oh, okay. Are you the one that he's sharing land with, the growing crops together?
So,
Okay.
everybody, she's blown right off the hook when somebody heard we were selling the cows. Everybody wants to buy the feed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, what can we do for you today then? Or have we done?
Well, we want the discussion on that. The other is where are we on the water? It sounds like we're gonna set up a meeting.
I'm gonna.
Are you gonna
I
take
am
a
going
lead?
to try.
Do you want to take a lead and then just let me know?
That's what Andy told me.
Yeah, we'll do that.
You'll take a lead on the joint meeting?
I'll try. I'm not gonna promise.
But let me know right away, because then we'll try.
Yeah, throw me your card away. I
Yeah.
don't know I did with the other ones. My wife is
Probably
usually
not.
having a very good.
Mike's got my number too.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add there
You want
that
the
we
mic
didn't
in?
mention earlier is, the engineer we have from MRB, has already worked on putting together a design proposal and has submitted it to, DOT. So that takes a couple of months to go through there. We've also, gotten on both.
Talking about for traffic in case they need a light or something, or?
Yeah, whatever is necessary to get through those approvals on that end there. It's getting out of my area of expertise. But along the lines of what we would need for right away going through BOCES property, so that's in front of their board as well. We should know.
Who's board?
The BOCES board.
Okay,
Because that's what the proposed line would be, is continuing to run along West Genesee and then through BOCES straight over there.
right.
So that's the current thinking we have right now, because it makes the most sense of getting that second source over there from where it's coming in, not 5 different. So things are moving around in the background there, but this section here is the biggest one. It's getting everyone.
I think the water and the land are gonna come at a peak, like a sprint within 60 days.
Okay. We'll add it to that.
That's always been a mess with that roadway with DOT.
Right.
It's always been a mess.
Yeah, that left turn stuff. You're talking about from past pro shop and all that, yeah.
That, nothing lines up right there, and we've argued it. As long as I've been involved with it, between the mall and our development, we've always argued that DOT should make that a T with the light right there, because you don't have light. You do own that.
No, it'd be great if there was a light
Yeah.
there, actually.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the truck traffic, just from going by my house, is tremendous. It's gotta be tremendous pulling out of there. I'm shocked that we haven't had some accidents there with something.
Did you guys have a problem?
It'd be nice if we could go
It's next to.
backwards towards the Home Depot to
No problem.
up the lot forward,
Yeah.
but they won't. They blocked it actually,
We are taking that into account.
because there is a light
They're
there.
not intending.
Yep, yeah, that's a nice, it comes out right there by,
Yeah.
by Stan Cup's place.
Yeah, this is gonna be really a lot of information, and we're probably gonna have these other folks with us for the next, hopefully, within 2 months.
Okay.
At one of these meetings, and it probably won't be a business plan, but it'll be kind of laid out as to what we're interested in doing.
Yeah, back of them book.
Won't be a nice picture like he had today.
Well, they're artists, so.
Well, thank you for your time today.
Thanks for coming.
Very good.
Thank you.
I was glad to see that other lot might be available too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I personally like to see the water issue resolved. Because
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we just get in a room, we're fine.
It gives me nightmares.
We know we want to work with the town on all this other stuff too. I mean, we have no issues there.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
Towns can be difficult.
yeah, I mean, basically, we've got a long-standing relationship with them and they were very good to us during the permit process on this. Now we'd like to, continue trying to progress in that area. And the only way to do that is you do the work together. So,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
but I'm good with talking anytime you want.
Thank you.
I am gonna be gone for Easter though, so maybe right around that weekend.
I'll communicate with my friend on board again.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. Might be more receptive now, because if I open it up to a lot more people, then it won't be like, he said, she said.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, we'll know what everybody says.
Yep, thank you.
Great, take care.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks so much for your patience.
We gotta come to a price because we did the appraisal.
Yes, we did.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we have,
We also have a lane on the
Right.
big screen.
I'm going right into it. Who's that Steve guy?
two guests.
That's the mayor with CNS companies.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, we're back to you, audit.
Audit.
Sorry, and thank you for your patience.
Absolutely. So prior to the board meeting at large, we went through the financial statements in detail with the finance committee. For the sake of the board, I will go through the statements, but at a much quicker pace. Stop me at any time if anyone has any questions or comments. So we'll get right into the financial statements. So the packet in front of you on the second page, we have the independent auditors report. And here we do have a clean opinion stating that these financial statements are materially correct. And then we have some jargon about our basis of opinion. We have performed our audit in accordance with government auditing standards, responsibilities of management. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. Therefore, while Danable and McKee has assisted in putting these reports together for you, it is ultimately management's responsibility to agree with and understand all of the content in here. On the next page, we have our auditor's responsibilities, stating that our objective is to obtain a reasonable assurance that the statements are correct, but not absolute. Even if we had performed all of the standards perfectly, which I would say we do. There is a small list that items may not have been detected. That said, we believe our procedures are appropriate for the opinion we have provided. We have exercised professional judgment in performing our tests. We have gone through risks of misstatement as we chose what tests to perform. We have obtained an understanding of internal control as we were doing our risk assessment. We evaluated the accounting policies to make sure that they were in accordance with the guidance. And if they're moving on to page 3 of the report, there is discussion of the required supplementary information, which includes the compliance information at the end of this report, stating that we, Danable, do not express an opinion or provide assurance on this information because the limited procedures do not provide sufficient evidence to express an opinion. So the testing that we've done here, we present our findings, but we are not providing an opinion as a whole on that information. And to the same vein, that is the same for the other reporting required by governmental auditing standards. Moving on to page 4, we have the management discussion and analysis. This is unaudited and prepared by CCIDA's management. Danable and McKee has reviewed this information to ensure that the numbers within it agree with the audited statements. Beyond that, we have not audited any assertions about any opinions or information herein. So on page 5, you have the management discussion and analysis presentation of your assets, liabilities, revenue, and expense. So I'll jump right down to your changes in financial categories between 2023 and 2022. So the total net position increased 1,198,470 compared to the prior year. And your cash and cash equivalents increased 876,770. Moving on to page 6 of the financial statement packet. Your current liabilities, including current liabilities other than payment in lieu of tax payments, increased 387,765. Your operating revenue increased 1,269,632, and that increase in revenue is a direct result of more projects and land sales in 2023. The operating expenses increased $71,000 or 85%. Financial analysis of the agency in the MD&A discusses the general revenues during the year. In the year ended 2023, CCIDA received administrative and land sale income of approximately 1.6 million. That's an increase of 1.3 million from the prior year. And in 2022, CCIDA received income from similar sources of 266,000. So you can see there was a big increase this year. Capital asset and debt administration. The agency had capital assets of approximately 1.8 million net of depreciation. There's discussion on page 6 of the economic factors impacting the entity. There's discussion of how in the last several years there's been a lag in business due to COVID. 2023 really marked a turning point as it came to CCIDA's activity. In 23, the agency approved 2 new pilot incentive applications and sold multiple agency lands. These projects are linked to land development option agreements to expand milk processing facilities. The agency began construction of a new sewer line in the industrial park in late 2023, and that is expected to be completed in late summer of 24. This project will provide infrastructure upgrades. 2 solar development projects that came to the agency before 2023 are also scheduled to close in 24. And this financial report is designed to provide Cayuga County citizens, taxpayers, and clients a general overview of the finances. And we'll move right then into the financial statements themselves, the actual audit portion, the actual portion that was audited on page 8. So on page 8, we have your statement of net position, current assets, largely including cash, a small amount of prepaid expenses for total current assets of approximately 1.7 million. That's compared to 816,000 in the prior year. So you had a very large increase in cash. Your long-term administrative fee receivable of 207,000, that is directly related to that land of sales. And then you have your capital assets net of depreciation. In total, you had assets of approximately $3.7 million this year in comparison to $1.8 million in the prior year. So a large increase in your assets. Moving right down into your liabilities this year are largely comprised of a new short-term debt agreement. In total, you had total liabilities of $455,863 compared to just $68,000 in the prior year. So you note that there are a small amount, a comparatively small amount, when you're looking at $400,000 of pilot payments payable in the current year of $18,000. You will see that corresponds with an expense line on the following page. We can talk about a little bit later. So in total, in the current year, the organization had a total net position of $3,183,233 for total liabilities and net assets of approximately 3.7 million. Any questions before we move on?
I do, clarification on that short-term debt for the 400,000, what is that? I'm sorry, you know that about them new, so.
Yeah.
What is that at all?
The project.
Is it the water line?
No, it's the shoreline, well, I don't want you to say it, because it's related to the other one.
Yeah, so we procured a bridge loan from the Cayuga County Development Corporation. We're paying interest only on that. The total amount is $400,000. It's due in full at the beginning of June. The reason we borrowed for that is we had to make sure we have enough funds in the bank to cash flow the project as we've been going through it. So a lot of the reasons going into it at the time is our EDA grant for the project. They reimbursed 80%. However, we weren't sure, especially with that first payment, things flowing of, we had to make sure, one, we can pay the contractor, and two, keep enough in the bank to, you know, start moving operations along. So it was our way of hedging risk on
It's
that.
an interesting point, because the grant is almost an offset to that loan, but it doesn't show
We didn't get reimbursed for any of the loan amounts until after the year.
But then you did say that's coming in at 80%, right?
Yes, and we have been getting paid by the EDA, but you know, it didn't make it into
up.
the.
They've been paid more timely than we anticipated, really.
And we invested it on John's recommendation. We're drawing 5% interest, which covers the interest cost that we're paying out.
Okay, very good, thank you. Thank you.
No, good questions.
Yeah,
All right. Moving on to page 9, you have your statement of revenue and expenses. So in the current year, you had administrative fee income of approximately $849,000. That's compared to approximately $168,000 in the prior year. So a really large increase in your admin fee expense as a result of those new pilot agreements that came through in the current year. Next line down, you have land option fee income of $0 this year, prior year $97,000. There were option agreements that the organization could get paid for regardless of if that option were executed last year. This year, options actually were executed, so instead you have gain on sale of land of approximately $668,000. For total operating revenue of 1.5 million compared to 266,000 last year, so good revenue year. Down in operating expenses, you have small amounts, dues and subscriptions, office supplies. The two largest items making up your expenses are your professional fees and contract services. You have a small amount of property taxes, conferences, seminars and trade shows, and industrial park expenses for total operating expenses of 123,000 compared to 83,000 in the prior year. So you have total operating expense, you have total operating income of approximately 1.4 million compared to 183,000 in the prior year. Next section down, we have non-operating income or loss. So in the current year, you did have interest income of almost $22,000. So that's interest-bearing investments was successful in the current year. Small amount of land rents, gas well royalties, and then this pilot penalty and interest expense of 18,457 does correspond with the payable on the page before. And we have discussion of why this was accrued later in the findings portion of the report. Finally, you have approximately $12,000 of interest expense, leading to total non-operating income or loss of 6,700. Total change in that position of a positive 1.4 million this year compared to 188,000 last year. It's a really good year financially.
I can just, Donna, that 400,000. Once the sewer line is built, we will turn that over to sewer water,
Water and sewer.
Water and
we're
sewer.
Dedicating it.
and then the county will give us
The money.
the 400,000.
So that predates me a little bit, of what exactly was worked out with the county. Rick, I know you were gonna.
County is,
Yeah, there's an agreement there.
There's an agreement with the county
For the 400,000.
400,000,
I can share that with everybody.
yeah. Yeah, could you just?
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Yes.
I'm quite sure it's in the name of the authority though. Yeah, I think it's in the name of the
Yes.
authority of the county.
Right.
Yes.
Right, that, they have to do that, yeah.
When can we afford to do that?
Huh?
Well, we get through it.
When can we?
I've emailed them and provided invoices to the county.
Did you ask nice?
Yeah. Yes.
No, as soon as they get the money, they could give it to the idea.
Right, yes.
No, they're not gonna.
When the project is done.
It allowed for it to be earlier though.
It could be.
Upon
Oh, that's
mutual
right.
agreement,
Oh,
we
that's
allowed for it to be earlier upon mutual agreement. So.
And, you know, as soon as we got it.
Yeah.
We can make interest on it and nothing else.
Very true.
Continue on, please.
So on page 10, we have our statement of changes in net assets. Our statement of change in net position. This is just a roll forward of essentially the organizations for a governmental agency, the equivalent of equity. From 21, your income, your net income down to 23, which agrees to the balance sheet on the prior page. Moving right on to page 11, your statement of cash flows. We have a breakdown of your cash flows from your various operating activities, so received and paid for pilot programs, professional fees, administrative fees, cash received for land option fees in the prior year, gas well royalties, rent, interest income, expense, and other operating. So you can see that net cash provided by operating activities in the current year of 490,000 compared to 229,000 in the prior year. So larger receipts, cash flows from investing activities. There are capitalized land costs in the current year of 892,000 compared to 164,000. And then proceeds from land of sale of 879,000. So net cash used for investing activities in the current year was approximately 13,900. And then cash provided by financing activities was that short-term loan of $400,000 in the current year. So you had a total increase in cash and cash equivalents of $877,000 compared to $114,000 in the prior year, bringing your ending cash balance in the current year to approximately $1.7 million. Moving on down to your reconciliation, this is just the changes in your accruals that got you back to your net cash provided by operating activities. So you can see you had that gain on sale of land, you received more cash than there was originally in the cost basis. Slightly more outgoing for prepaid expenses, long-term administrative fee receivable, increase in pilot payment payable, decrease in accounts payable. Moving right on to page 12, we have your notes to the statements. In note 1, you have the nature of operations and summary of significant accounting policies. We have some general information about the operations of the organization. The basis of accounting is on the governmental accounting standards, on the accrual basis. The organization does not have any restricted net position, meaning there's no restricted equity. Everything is either capital assets or free to be used by the organization as a whole. Revenue recognition, the agency recognizes revenue for administrative fees for projects based on type of tax incentive. That revenue is recognized when the agency meets performance obligations based on specific contracts. Application fees to submit an application are non-refundable and recognized upon submission of the application. We have disclosures about the definition of your cash and cash equivalents, pilot payments receivable and payable, so those payments in lieu of taxes. I do want to note in this paragraph, we do point out the difference between pilot payment receivable and payment payables represent cash collected by the agency, not yet paid to tax jurisdictions by year end. Unpaid balances remaining after the stated payment terms are considered past due. Invoices unpaid beyond 30 days are subject to a 5% late penalty payment and a 1% interest charge per month thereafter, payable by the agency or the participating organization, meaning the individuals responsible for pilot payments. The party responsible for the fee is determined based on the circumstances surrounding the late payments. So the New York State legislation does require that payments received by the IDA are paid out within 30 days or may be subject to fines and penalties. We'll keep moving along in here. Concentration of credit risk, just stating cash held over $250,000 FDIC insurance limit may be subject to risk. Let's jump right down to note 2, capital assets. You have your roll forward of the fixed assets for the year, beginning as of the end of 2022 at approximately 1.0 million to approximately 1 million. You had additions of 892,947 this year, so that's related to the construction in process for the agency's sewer project. And then retirements and sales of land at a cost basis of 211,389. So at the end of 2023, your fixed assets, your capital assets were approximately 1.8 million. Moving right on to note 3, short-term debt. We have the disclosures related to that $400,000 loan taken out from Cayuga County Development Corporation. As Mike mentioned, that is due in June of 2024. Between now and then, the agency may make interest-only payments of 4.75%, and then the full principal is due at maturity. Note 4, disclosure of grants payable. The organization has a small payable on the books for $10,000. That is there because the organization had not provided required paperwork, and therefore those funds have not been released to that organization that should be paid. Getting that paperwork is a condition of them getting that money. Going on to note 5, we have your land option fee sale income. In 2022, the agency entered into 2 land development agreements with license and exclusive option contracts related to land. Under these agreements, the other party, aka the business, paid a fee for the right to purchase a designated parcel of land within 1 year. Both businesses exercised their land option agreements and purchased the land in 2023. So that first business paid $25,788 in 22 to have the option. In 23, they paid $246,668 to purchase the land. In closing, they entered into a pilot agreement subject to the agency's adoption protocols, and they paid $109,355 as an administrative fee, with another $36,452 due on the 5th anniversary of the closing date. So that due at closing date is part of the total receivable on the balance sheet. The second business paid $72,000 in 2022 for that option to purchase. They exercised it in 2023 and paid $632,000 to purchase that land. Upon closing, they also entered into a pilot agreement and paid $513,000 as an admin fee, with another $171,000 due on the 5th anniversary of the closing date, making up the other portion of that receivable. For the year ended 2022, in total, the agency had recognized $97,788 for option fee income related to the agreements. And in 2023, they recognized a gain on sale of $667,649 and an additional $829,807 of admin fee income related to those agreements. The portion of the administrative fee income due on that 5th year of $207,452 is included in the receivable on the statement of that position. And then note 6 just states that the agency may be exposed to various risks, and in management's opinion, there are no material contingencies required to be accrued or disclosed as of December 31st, 2023. Before we move into the compliance portion, does anyone have any questions or comments on any of that? Great. So moving on to the independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance matters. It states that we have audited in accordance with auditing standards. The component unit of Cayuga County, the IDA, and the related notes to the financial statements, which collectively comprise Cayuga County Industrial Development Agency's basic financial statements, and we've issued our report. During our report, we have reviewed internal control for the purpose of understanding the organization. We are not expressing an opinion on the operating effectiveness of internal control. This goes through and defines different kinds of deficiencies if they were found related to internal control. So a deficiency in internal control exists when a design or operation of a control does not allow management or employees in the normal course of business to prevent, detect, or correct misstatements on a timely basis. A material weakness is a deficiency or a combination of deficiencies where there's a reasonable possibility that a material misstatements will not be prevented, detected, or corrected on a timely basis. And a significant deficiency or a combination of deficiency or combination of them. An internal control that is less severe than a material weakness, but important enough to merit the attention of those charged with governance. So you'll see those terms as we get into our report to the board, and we'll go through our findings here. So I'm gonna have us skip right ahead to page 19, where we have our report on compliance. And in this report on compliance, in connection with our audit, nothing came to our attention that caused us to believe the agency fails to comply with the regulation under question. However, our audit was not directed primarily towards obtaining knowledge of such non-compliance. Accordingly, we have performed additional procedures, other matters may have come to our attention regarding non-compliance that has not been disclosed. So on page 20, we have the bread and butter that backs up the last two pages I just discussed, being the schedule of audit findings and responses. So up top, we have your summary of audit results. We have provided a clean opinion of the financial statements. Number 2, we noted 3 material weaknesses relating to the audit of the financial statements that are reported. And we'll go through those. And then we noted there was 1 instance of non-compliance identified material to the financial statements. And we'll go through that as well a little later. So going into the detail of the financial statement findings, our first finding labeled 2023-001 During our subsequent disbursement testing, we discovered material expenses were not being recorded as payables at year end. So there were instances where invoices were being recorded on a cash basis instead of an accrual basis, meaning that the expenses, the service had been provided to, received by CCIDA in the year under audit, but was not, those expenses were not paid yet as of year end and therefore were not recorded. That was corrected as part of our audit entries that we recommended or will be corrected. Management has agreed to post the audit entries. But during the audit, that was not originally identified by management. So we recommend that management implement internal control procedures around recording and processing of all expenses to make sure that cutoff is proper. The second finding, 2023-02. During our expense testing, we discovered multiple legal invoices that were duplicitously recorded. There were duplicates. The agency overstated expenses and overpaid fees, and the error was not originally detected by management. We believe it is important that internal control procedures be established for recording and processing all expenses and payments. That could be including but not limited to using a stamp on invoices stating that it has been posted and just making sure that there's additional review, making sure that individuals are understanding the invoices that are being posted to make sure if, for example, an invoice came in and at a later date, a statement came in that included that prior invoice and another invoice, that only the new data is being added to those expenses. Our additional finding 2023-003. During our fixed asset testing, we discovered the basis in the land was not being properly tracked. Well, the organization did have the cost basis in total on their financial records. There was significant difficulties in finding out what dollar value was attached to each parcel of land. It became particularly difficult in the current year because of those land sales. We had to establish a cost basis to then establish a gain for those sales. Mike worked extensively with Taylor and Peggy, and a cost basis has been established for future audits. And then moving on to the next finding, 2023-04. During our review of land sale contracts, we identified future receivables that had not been recorded by the agency. That was that $207,000 of admin fees related to the sales. Again, this is a cash versus accrual issue. For the accrual basis financial statements, whether or not the cash has come in, the minute the organization is legally entitled to that revenue, it should be recorded as a receivable. So this was also one of the adjusting journal entries we recommended. The next section here discusses non-compliance. According to the New York State law under which the authority operates, payments in lieu of taxes must be paid to the tax jurisdictions within 30 days of receipt. During 2023, the agency failed to remit payments due to various tax jurisdictions within the required 30-day time frame. That is not all of them, but there was a portion that did not go out timely. And thus, if we jump down to the effect or potential effect paragraph, for each month or part thereof that payments in lieu of taxes are delinquent beyond the first month, interest shall accrue to and be paid to the affected tax jurisdiction on the total amount due, plus a late payment penalty of 5%. And the amount, and there's interest in the amount of 1% per month until the payment is made. As such, the agency is subject to penalty and interest fees of $18,000, $18,457 in as of December 31st, 2023. So we recommend the agency consider opening an additional bank account, which is dedicated solely to the receipts of payments and receipts of pilots. So the organization can see at any given time how much money specifically needs to be turned around and sent out to the government, so those go out timely. The last page in our packet, page 23, this goes through prior audit findings. So in 2022, we also noted issues with, expenses being recorded on a cash basis. And in 2022, we, during our accounts receivable testing, had noted multiple receivables had been recorded twice. So in both of those instances, it's a matter of going through and double checking and reconciling those accounts at year end. And just making sure that controls are in place, that when something has been recorded, it has been marked as such, so it doesn't go in a second time. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we go into the report to the board of directors?
The last item that you mentioned, it's under a year ending 2022. And that you, am I understanding this correctly, that there was this item that was brought forward then? And so we should have taken action to remediate the situation, and it was not done, is that?
So,
That's under the 2022-001.
yeah, so when we say the agency did not correct this finding, so as part of our audit and as part of these findings, both this and last year, we have provided adjusting journal entries that will correct any material misstatements from a financial standpoint. This is saying that the agency did not correct the finding, in that this year we found new instances of the variety.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. You're welcome. Anything else before we get into the report to the board? Okay. A large portion of this report is just very standard language. I encourage you, if you have not already, to read through it verbatim. I will not be reading it verbatim for everyone. So I'm going to jump right ahead to the fourth page in the packet, right after your table of contents. The required communications to the board of directors with the heading auditor's responsibility under U.S. generally accepted auditing standards.
I'm sorry, what page you on?
Number 4.
Sorry, this first page doesn't have a page number on it, unfortunately. If you start flipping, the first page with the page number on it is page 2. It's the page before that. So again, this is all largely standard language. The auditor's responsibility under U.S. generally accepted auditing standards just goes through and states that, as we communicated in the engagement letter sent, our responsibility at Sandoval McKee was to form and express an opinion about whether the financial statements were materially correct. Our responsibility is to plan and perform the audit using reasonable rather than absolute assurance. We consider internal controls as part of doing our audit, but we do not express an opinion on the effectiveness of internal controls. We are responsible for communicating significant matters related to the audit that are, in our professional judgment, relevant to you, the board, in overseeing the financial reporting process. However, we are not required to design procedures for the specific purpose of identifying matters to communicate to you. So this report goes through and to communicate the matters. We have provided our comments regarding material weaknesses noted during our audit. We are not aware of any documents containing or discussing financial statements or financial results. On the next page, page 2, plan, scope, and timing of the audit. We discussed the audit timing in accordance with the engagement letter and various planning emails. The scope of the audit is a matter of judgments. Moving right down to compliance with all ethical requirements regarding independence. We, Sandoval McKee, have maintained our independence, followed all ethical requirements. We have provided no non-audit consulting or system consulting services other than those agreed in our engagement letter. Moving right on down to our qualitative aspects of the entity significant accounting policy. Significant accounting policies, management is responsible for selecting accounting policies. Significant accounting estimates. Accounting estimates are an integral part of the financial statement requiring judgments. We move right on to page 3. During our field work, we determined that the basis for and reasonableness of management's estimates. So anything that was considered an estimate, we had no issues with. General estimates out in the financial statement world would include an allowance for credit losses, fair market value of investments, things of that nature. For this particular organization, the biggest estimate would really be, depreciable lives of assets. However, none of your assets are currently depreciable. It's all either construction in process or land. The next section of this report is corrected and uncorrected misstatements or adjustments. So this table here lists out all of the adjustments that we are proposing be made to make sure that the internal books of the organization agree to the audited financial statements. So prior to our audit, the organization had an unadjusted change in net assets, so they had net income of $473,000. And then throughout the audit, we proposed entries to record interest expense on debts, to record interest income on a certificate of deposit, to reduce expenses that were capitalized in 2022. So in this case, the cash had gone out in 22, or rather the cash had gone out in 2023, but had already been properly capitalized in 2022 when the items were incurred. To record additional expenses incurred, so that's that cutoff issue of invoices not being recorded before year end. To capitalize construction expense, so that was originally in expenses, however, is related to that construction process, so it's moved from your profit and loss to your balance sheet. To remove duplicate and overpaid legal invoices. To record long-term administrative fee receivable. To reclassify late payments, late fees on pilots as a payable. To correct accounts payable, to dispose of costs out of land, and to accrue penalties on pilots that were not remitted timely. The net effect of all of those adjustments increased your change in net assets, so in total, your adjusted change in net assets were income of $1,386,621. And then we did not identify any uncorrected misstatements. So had we found any items during our audit that fell between a threshold referred to as trivial. So trivial would be an item that we may have found that was incorrect, that the standard everyday user, Joe Schmo off the street, would see that arrow and go, it's a couple of cents, it's $100, we don't care. So anything that falls above that trivial line, but below the line that is established through auditing standards that says, you know, if it's wrong above this amount, definitely change it. So if we found any errors between those two thresholds that we did not say, yes, do the entry, those would be listed in this section. This year, everything that we found has been included in the adjustments section with your entries. Moving on, auditor's judgment about the quality of accounting principles. The organization is largely following the accounting principles. On an official basis, the organization is using accrual accounting. We discussed the cash versus accrual cutoff. Ultimately, we obtained full cooperation of management and access to the information required to complete the audit. We encountered no significant difficulties in performing and completing the audit in regards to obtaining information. We had no disagreements with management. We are not aware of any consultation with other accountants. We discussed various matters with management prior to the organization's audit. These are on the normal course of business and are not a condition of our retention. We did not identify any material errors or fraud during our audit. And then related to the non-compliance with laws, regulations, illegal acts, is that disclosure about the timing of pilot payments. Not everything went out within that 30 days. Prior to our final issuance, we will have management sign a management representation letter, essentially stating that all information that they have provided to us is true, complete, and accurate to the best of their knowledge. And this last bit, subsequent events, management has evaluated subsequent events as of the date the financial statements were available for issue, meaning that we will inquire with Mike, Katie, as to if they are aware of anything else that would need to be changed or disclosed in the financial statements. This page here is discussing your internal controls. I will go through this briefly. A large portion of this mirrors what was found in your financial statement compliance. Had you not been subject to a compliance audit, you would have only gotten this report. But, that it was compliance, you are seeing these items twice. So in your report on internal control over material weaknesses, we listed that improper cutoff of tables we described, duplicative posting expenses we described, improper tracking of that land cost basis that we described, and improper revenue recognition. During our audit, we noted that sold land was underreported. They had not recorded the receivable for the $207,000. And that is everything in these reports. Questions, comments, concerns?
We covered everything.
Great.
Your motion to accept the draft report.
So moved.
I second.
Motion made second. Any discussion to our auditors or to the board? All in favor? Aye. Oh. Carry, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so one of the things that we will be needing is the management's response, so that we can include that in the opinion or into the financial statement. I know Mike has drafted some items. I don't know if he's going to go through those with the board. But once we have those, we can complete the financial statements. These need to be issued. You've given the approval pending those items, but the financial statements need to be filed with your Paris report, which is due by the end of the month. Mike, do you have those drafted, or will you be sending them to the board for approval?
I did share with your team, Elaine, the draft responses I've done on behalf of the board for the select audit committee. I've also shared those with them.
Okay.
I haven't heard direct feedback thus far. I'm happy to share it with the full board as well for any feedback on it, but we will add that to you in very short order. As you pointed out, the auditor's report, as well as a couple other things they're going to provide us, is all part of our Paris reporting due this month. So.
Yep, and Peggy has those responses. We had agreed that based on the timing of receiving them, that we would hold adding them to the report. So as to make sure that the board got the cleanest, non-rushed copy possible.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. All right, well, with that, we'll make sure that everyone's happy with the MD or the management response. We'll get you the management representation letter so we can get that signature returned to us, and then we'll get on the road to issuance. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything to report on Paris?
Yeah, so what I have been doing, and I know in years past, pronounced it been, but it's about 100 pages. So I thought to say the cost of the printing, as well as the size of this packet here, is a full set of the entire Paris report is essentially done. Right now, I'm going to be spending the rest of this week making sure that all of the information is true and accurate. I have a couple of follow-ups with some of our IDA clients to make sure the reporting information is also accurate. What comes through on that, usually the headcount figures, if there's a discrepancy either below what they had originally promised or anything else, the state's going to come back and say what's going on here. So we have to make sure we have ample information for that. Audited information is also going to be important on that, as we're reporting all of our activity in there as well. But it is, as I said, more or less done at this point. The two other pieces that go along with that is our annual report, as well as our annual measurement report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you very much, Angela.
Thank you.
Happy to share those with the board as well. They're, as I said, I didn't want to inundate the board with the amount of paper and everything else coming in front of you at this point, but those are all essentially done at this point. So a couple weeks ahead of last year, where that was coming down to the wire, but happy to send those along based on a review, as well as follow up with the management responses to the audit findings on that point as well. It's pretty high level generic as I found it.
The Paris will be, you'll put that on the website?
Yes, that's a requirement that everything has to
I'm
be.
sorry, for our website, the, Board of, the idea.
The Q IDA?
No, the one we go into to get our, minutes and all that.
I was gonna ask, it's been an outstanding question of mine, is when is the last time this board used that link on the website to access uploaded information? But when I checked it, what a minute, not the minutes.
Not, I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
there's a link on the IDA website just for board
Yeah, I
members.
do it all the time.
You do?
Yeah, especially when they're looking for something old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I'm
It was part of a package.
I got it a year ago. You email everything. so-
Well, I email you everything, but I personally haven't uploaded anything to that site, and it doesn't look like anything has been. and it's
He
not-
probably keeps reading last year's.
Yeah.
That's why I look so good.
I know, I tried to go on there, so does it not provide you like a notification that somebody attempted to? The hack
It's,
it?
it's a pretty simple website.
Oh, really, it doesn't do that, just the
And,
activity, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
So I
that's,
can look into that and start providing updates directly to it if you would like me to, you know. Re-update that, or just send you things directly.
Good job.
Yeah.
Oh, don't say that.
Well,
As a new board member,
Okay, is there anything else for the?
This right here should be public.
yeah, no, I'm just talking about the errors, so I can.
Any other questions?
No.
Bills, communication, quickly.
Okay, bills, we've got a few. CNS, water to cloud, the chamber for our membership and for a ticket to the state of the union thing. Harris Beach, for 2,500 fee for something that the ends of Aurora are doing.
That's just an app, so we're acting as a pass through, they pay us $3,000, we pay 500 and pass the rest along to Justin's spring.
The pilot payments were all approved at the last meeting. And it was done, and there is I was trying to sort out the plots we weren't supposed to be paying taxes on and was late with tax. So there's a small late fee, but I'm gonna personally pay that,
No,
so
you're not. No,
we'll take care of that.
No, you're
Yeah, because
no, you're not.
I
No,
was
there's no
around with it.
No argument.
There you can't.
Argument's over.
Anyhow, so those are the
I
bills.
moved to pay.
Okay, go on.
No, that fee's only, I figured it out, Brent, it's only if you pay by credit card, otherwise don't pay that, you let them down.
Is there a second?
Who was the first?
I moved to pay the bills.
I'll second.
Discussion.
So what do you pay the chamber? 325 or
25, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
And the board still wants to be amended?
Well,
It does-
we pay ahead of you if you want to
It's
room
room.
for.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a cheap room to rent.
All right, so let me, just so I wrap my mind around the pilots. What we discussed in the audit were pilots that were late last year, beginning of the year.
That's what I have from Taylor, and I can send this along if I
Would you please?
haven't already.
All right,
Is
so,
she provided a full breakdown, and I think this is all from this time last year.
okay. And then. So, that was the late fee plus, and when were those pilots paid last year?
The January pilots last year looked like they were mostly paid in March.
March of last year,
Yeah,
okay. October comes around, no issues with that.
there, I think that was all done on time.
Okay, and then now. January came around this year. We're gonna have, and we paid it, right? We paid all
There's one pilot still missing.
okay.
But the rest are taken
we
care of.
received and we paid out.
Mhm.
Are we going to get hit for that 5% again?
We shouldn't with January this year.
Okay,
Because we were within.
No,
the days.
sorry to interrupt it, the penalty is payable by the company if they don't pay by the date in the contract. The IDA never gets hit with a penalty. We're only obligated to pay out what we receive.
But we have to pay that within 30 days.
Right, once it gets past 30,
Let me
Justin,
correct you so there's no confusion, and I'm sorry to jump in. The
No.
IDA is never liable for any of these fees.
okay,
The IDA simply is supposed to administer the contract and collect the payment by the due date from the company, from the owner. If they don't pay by that due date, and I just sent out a summary to Rick, John Latnishan,
Yeah.
Mike, and outlining exactly which date is applicable. Most of these are due February 1st. So on February 2nd, if they haven't paid the amount due, even if they didn't get a bill, there's no obligation to any of these contracts that gives them a break if they don't get a bill.
okay,
They're supposed to do their own research on their end. So largely,
Well-
if they don't pay the pilot payment by February 2nd, they owe an additional 5% to the IDA, who then distributes it to the taxing jurisdictions. The IDA is never liable. You don't on your balance sheet, you don't owe a penalty just because somebody didn't pay you. The company that didn't pay you owes the penalty. And if you follow the wording of the contract, you're supposed to collect that 5%. It's not even something the board can waive because it's statutory. It's under the general municipal law. It's dictated by law. You can't say, well, we didn't get you a bill on time. That has nothing to do with the liability. We unfortunately have to collect it. And once it's collected, then you pay it out to the taxing jurisdictions pro rata.
so have we collected?
We've collected all but
One.
one.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you addressed that one in an email, right, Justin?
What's the one that hasn't been paid, Katie?
Rover hasn't paid yet because frankly, I was later with theirs, because they weren't on the summary sheet I was working from, so I kind of missed them. And then they asked me
Again,
to look at it again.
their payments due February 1,
Yeah,
whether you send them a bill or not.
yeah,
Okay, so,
they're
So we're probably
disagreeing
gonna have
with
to send them
that.
up a follow-up biller.
Yeah, so the one thing I wanted to raise here, Justin, because knowing this is something of a sensitive issue. Trying to take the client's point of view, if they've been conditioned year after year that the IDA is gonna send me the bill when I receive it, I'm gonna pay it out. And, as I told Grover earlier this week, you didn't get your payment on time, and unfortunately, we have to slap a fee on top of you, and their response was that we're not paying this. So I sympathize with their position, but I also very much, they have the same contract we do and the same schedule we do.
so my question is, did we receive the payment and then did we pay it out to the municipalities?
We haven't received, oh, yes,
For all
For the
all
other
the
one.
rest,
yeah,
so,
we have nothing in our coffers right now that belongs to the taxing jurisdictions.
right.
so Justin, but you say that we should not be carrying it as a payable. And yet our auditor just left saying we have a payable.
Well, you
Or
have a
maybe-
payable you can go back 6 years under New York law and correct a mistake of contract. In other words, you could mess up billing for 6 years and go back 6 years. Before that, you can't go any further.
Okay,
To the extent that the IDA wants to fix the 2022 issues or the 2023 issues, you can. That would involve billing your clients for something that was due, 14 months ago, largely. So we can look at it. I mean, the auditor is carrying something on our report, but we didn't collect the funds, so we have no funds to remit. This is an administrative thing that needs to be corrected.
I can look at and see if I can figure out where they got their numbers from.
okay.
The contracts, yeah. Each of the
We're
pilots
collecting
has
money
their
as
own.
a fiduciary. It's
Right.
not that we're collecting it and then
Just.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we're.
Further question? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Gary? Site acquisition.
Yeah, so in your packets here, are two different, there's some marketing material, but there's as well as, what do you call it, proposal agreement. The two firms included is CBRE as well as Pyramid, both of which were recommended by Center State after speaking with them of who they would recommend that we work with. Both of these firms, as we've understood it, in speaking with them directly, have worked with Micron directly and have also, in the case of Pyramid, have worked with our counterpart over in Onondaga County, representing them in site acquisition as well. I don't think at this time it would be in the best interest of the board to make a vote to go with one or the other, so that's how we're missing three other members of the board here today. Very similar in terms of what they charge on the commission there. Pyramid, I believe, is a little lighter on the fee side than CBRE is. Both of which they're proposing a 1-year contract for us to work with. They do have in the discussions, both Steve Lynch and I had with them, have all the information we do in terms of this is what we're looking for as an IDA, basic requirements to pick up new land and the focus spots that we're looking for on top of that. So kind of putting it into the lap of the board at this point of which, direction you would like to move forward. And
Did we reach out to local realtors?
That's what I was gonna ask. Is there,
We talk about local labor
Yeah.
all the time and.
right. There is the RFPs closed, or is there still a chance?
This is
Somebody
still
else.
open.
Okay.
This was more of a general outreach that I had done with Steve Lynch to say, we're not making the proper headway on land acquisition. And we've got to do something about it now because we're very quickly running out of our existing land. And we don't want to fall behind on that project there.
But I'd agree with John, and
Yeah, I agree.
I also think, without
Gina.
Gina here,
We don't want to be criticized that having.
we should,
Well, well,
yeah.
I can also ask reps from these companies and any others, to come to our meeting in April.
No, I think that's on this.
Matt Shelman, he
Yeah.
does.
Well, Steve does, Steve Fire for him.
Yeah, that company, why don't you do that?
Okay,
Yeah,
we can do that.
all right, we'll put that up next, we'll wait here.
Table it until next meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
Again, it's 6.
we'll wait. Yeah, all right, let's go right into, what was the executive session?
That's the second.
Do we,
5:55.
we have motion for an executive?
I'll move
What's the purpose of it?
Contract negotiation,
contract negotiation.
second, on favor,
Aye.
we're in.